Doing good. Yeah. We'll just hold on a moment. Yeah. Welcome to BSides 2019. Our speaker today is Bruce Anderson, and Bruce is going to be speaking about an inside look at stopping unauthorized sellers and counterfeiters on Amazon. Mr. Anderson is the CEO and co-founder of Cyber Intelligence Services, Investigation Services, and he's a certified ethical hacker and also a certified digital forensic engineer, and he has been responsible for solving cases involving international hacker groups. So welcome, Bruce, and thanks so much for sharing with us whatever you have today.
Thank you. Well, just for fun, is how many people here buy on Amazon? Dang, wouldn't have guessed that. How many people here sell on Amazon? One. How many people here work for Amazon? Good. Give you a little bit of background is that our company, got to get used to this here, I guess I'll stand here. Our company, Cyber Investigation Services, has two divisions. We've been chasing bad guys around the world for all kind of things of hacking and extortion and fraud and business email compromise and pretty serious stuff. And back in 2012, we got introduced to the e-commerce market, and we had a skincare manufacturer come to us and said that we have people selling our prescription skincare on Amazon and private sites and all over without prescriptions. What can you do to help? And while we didn't know much about e-commerce at that time, we knew a whole lot about catching bad guys. We solved that problem for them, and then we said, maybe there's some other challenges there. And so what I'm going to do today is just kind of open up your minds a little bit about what is really going on in the world of e-commerce. Our e-commerce division is, we currently protect 60 plus Fortune 500 companies in their brand protection for their trademark infringement and patent infringements worldwide. We have a team of licensed and law enforcement trained investigators. We have a high-tech development team, and we have some pretty powerful technology for in volume doing investigations, tracking, finding, identifying bad guys related to e-commerce. So, with that said, is that I think we all understand that e-commerce is really somewhat of a relatively new area. And it's been coming on for the last 10 years, but what we're finding at the brand level is that they have spent years building these supply chains and distribution channels that many of them that when they were built 100 years ago was done on a handshake, without contracts, never with the thought in mind of an Amazon. And today is that you can, with the right contacts, get access to a boatload of product, whether it be legitimate or not, and now sign up for, I forget what it is, $49 or so to become an Amazon seller. And you can sell worldwide, and you can sell in private sites, and everybody can see that stuff, and you can do it in your underwear from your home. And that has changed the game that companies have not been prepared for. One of the biggest surprises to me as I got involved in working with a lot of these companies was that despite having all of the people that they had, top-level attorneys and law firms, nobody knew how to tackle this problem. And so consequently is that we sort of stepped into that marketplace and it's still an evolving marketplace. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, e-commerce sales are expected to reach $4 trillion by 2020. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that brands haven't necessarily adopted the idea that they need to sell online. More and more are coming along that way, but it's still not a major piece of their income unless you started as an e-com only type of company. But what they are realizing is that people's means of shopping has absolutely changed. And consequently is that today, because we all carry an iPhone in or some kind of mobile device in our pocket, is that we can, while we're in a store, go look at a price, see whether or not I like it, touch the product itself, and then I can turn around before I walk out of the store and I can buy it on Amazon at half price, right? And is that a fair assessment of how people are shopping today? Would you agree with that? So the other statistic that's out is that over half of American consumers now say that they prefer online shopping to traditional shopping. And I just see it in my kids. I don't think I ever walk into a store. I'm old, so I never go to a mall anymore. But I think a lot of folks are moving in that direction. So one of the things that, dynamics we started seeing around 2010 was the change where shopping was really done in regional centers, and you had places like Mall of America and here in town, the International Mall and the Brandon Mall and those types of things. And frankly, they're dying dinosaurs, and that retail sales have overtaken the department store sales significantly starting in around 2010. Here, that we're seeing that they're expecting a 50% decline in malls and retail stores or physical retail stores by the year 2023. And so all of this has the brands looking at it and going, holy cow, what do I do now? Now, I'm talking mostly about Amazon, but, as you look around the world, is that Amazon's actually a baby in size compared to places like Alibaba and AliExpress and some of the Chinese selling sites. And more that these sites are cropping up. Today, the biggest problems we hear from brands is Amazon primarily, secondarily Walmart, third is Google Shopping, fourth is eBay. And those are the primary sites impacting U.S. brands unless they are also being sold internationally. And so every conference I go to, and everybody talks about all these things, but the elephant in the room is this giant called Amazon. But Amazon, and I don't have my glasses and I can't read my slide thing here, but Amazon in 2016, its third-party marketplace of vendors sold $133 billion of retail goods, and in that is that 44,000 display shops, or 380 million square feet of space, 637,000 displaced retail jobs, okay, and roughly about $3.9 to $5 billion in lost sales just in the impact of in local communities. And I'm saying that like it's a bad thing, is that Amazon was brilliant, and their mantra is let's get as much good product as possible, let's sell it at the cheapest possible price, and let's get it to the consumer as fast as I possibly can. And that's their mantra. Everything that drives Amazon, that is their mantra, and we've heard that from the very top in their brand protection group. But they have absolutely skyrocketed in sales. I think last year is $232 billion in sales. And a lot of those sales are driven. How many of you think they're primarily driven by brands? The sales on Amazon. How many think they're driven by third-party sellers? You're correct. Most of their sales are now driven by third-party sellers. And what a third-party seller is that I can make a relationship with you and buy a bunch of product, and I can now sell it online as a third party selling that product, and that might be Nike, that might be Rolex, that might be Kate Spade, that might be a lot of different types of things, and Amazon highly encourages that. In fact, Amazon also, and this is going to be interesting because I think there's going to be a court case that will test this eventually, but Amazon has whole teams of people that they go out to these particular brands, and if the brand doesn't want to sell their product on Amazon, then they'll go find somebody in their distribution network and buy it from them and sell it directly on Amazon and then compete with the brand itself on their own trademark. And, and so currently nobody's taken them to task on that. But from all the IP lawyers that I talk to that deal with this nationally, think that's coming. Amazon has changed the shopping forever. If I read this, it says 51%, start shopping journey on Amazon. 55% are likely to purchase their product on Amazon too, and 80% check Amazon reviews for what they think about that particular product. So now we switch to the other side. With all these sales and with e-commerce growing comes what? Opportunity. Comes opportunity to make money. Comes opportunity for crime. And so we, being a cyber investigation group and an e-com brand protection group, we focus on the crime side. And with that is that we have what are called unauthorized sellers, and I'll explain those a little bit in a minute. Gray market sellers, counterfeiters, and then we're seeing also a ton of what I would call advertising hijacking, where someone will advertise Nike and hijack it to Nikki. Okay? And so there's a lot of that going on. And the truth of the matter is that most of the industry that was designed for brand protection, the big companies of Mark Monitor and folks alike, they set up their entire system to monitor what people were doing, but mostly authorized sellers. But if they don't know who that person is, so for instance, if I'm a distributor, and I distribute to you legitimately, and you legitimately, but I send 200 pallets to you, and no one knows who you are, now what? And none of these brand protection groups have had visibility over who these people are, and consequently, so now when they're selling this at a much cheaper price, it's driving the price down, for the consumer. And so now you legitimate distributors are going, what the heck? I've got an agreement with you to control my minimum advertised pricing, but yet I've got people beating me on my own product at half price. And oh yeah, by the way, at that half price, it now reduces the profits of the brand. It hurts the reputation of that brand. And also at the same time is that if I'm a manufacturer with that, guess what? Ultimately, manufacturing always gets more expensive, not less expensive. So now I'm getting squoze at every end as a brand, but yet at the same time, I'm getting hurt by all these people. I don't have a clue who they are. Okay? So those impacts for brands are loss of revenues, frustrated retailers and distributors, financial and profit loss, brand dilution and reputation damage, loss of business opportunity. Now we see with successful brands that are not the Fortune 500 yet, but they're up and coming, but household names. So now they get an opportunity to get their product in a Walmart or a Target or Macy's or wherever there. But now the brands are saying, unless you can show us that you have clean market channels, we're not going to take on your product, or we will sell at the lowest price possible. Therefore, you need to give us that pricing that we can make money at the lowest price possible. And so now it's forcing this race to the bottom in pricing for everybody. And so those brands come to us and go, can you clean us up so we can get into Target or Walmart or what have you? And so it's this whole ecosystem that's been created, mostly driven by Amazon, and then Amazon complicates it because they also monitor the market. And so I could have total control of all my sellers on Amazon, but I have people now that are selling over in Walmart or Google Shopping that are beating pricing, and guess who's going to get the buy box on Amazon? It's going to be the person with the lowest price, because Amazon is going to match that price on Walmart. And so so it's almost like in the stock market, this trading system that's going on that Amazon drives, and professional sellers are also tapped into this trading system. And so they're constantly moving and changing prices, maybe sometimes only by a few cents during the course of a day, in order to determine what price is actually sold on Amazon. So let's talk about the first category, which is unauthorized sellers. An unauthorized seller is we classify it as a seller of legitimate product, but are not authorized to sell it because the brand has not approved it. So it's back to, I've sold out that back door, or I haven't even been required as a distributor. So as a distributor, I set all of you up as retailers, but I don't require any kind of documentation or accountability or even any kind of agreements with you. And all of a sudden, all of you guys are out selling any way you want, and I'm happy as a distributor because you're buying 100 pallets, you're buying 200, you're buying 400. I'm a great distributor. I'm making a heck of a lot of money, right? But now you guys get to competing with all of one another, and because you're trying to sell it online, because that is the best way to get it out there today. And now you go, oh, I got to cut it by a dime and a quarter and a dollar, and you get the point. And ultimately, everybody drives it down to the bottom. And oh yeah, by the way, in a lot of cases, Amazon doesn't even care if they make a profit on it. They just want the item in their stock. So the other challenge that has happened, and this is one of the pieces that absolutely floored me when I started dealing with the big brands, is how many of you, I'll ask you to do it a different way. How many of you here have ever heard of what is called the first sale doctrine? One person selling on Amazon. And what the first sale doctrine says is that if I go to Walmart or Costco and I buy 10 cases of this item, that I now am the owner of that item, therefore I could sell it for a penny anywhere I want to. Okay? It's totally allowable by the trademark law. And so consequently, you're not breaking the law by selling that product of that particular brand. Here's the caveat. Unless. What the trademark law says is that, number one, in order to have a trademark violation, is that one, you have to have a registered trademark. Okay? And in the U.S., it's the trademark that's first in use. Just because I trademarked something, but I've never sold one, the first person that sells it under that trademark in the U.S. has that trademark. In China, it's just the opposite. It's the first person to sell. Secondarily, what the trademark law says is that someone has to be selling that product. Okay, check. The third piece says is that if the person selling it is causing confusion in the marketplace, then it is now that they are now selling that mark illegally. And so what causes confusion? Well, if brands require that their sellers be under agreement for product inspection controls, they're the only ones that can offer a guarantee, so that if someone else is selling on Amazon but is not an authorized retailer or distributor of that product, that warranty is voided. Anything, and the other side of it is, especially with things like ingestibles, vitamins, and food and prescriptions and all those different types of things, is that the consumer expects to be safe. And so what brands have to do is to structure their agreements right, so that their agreements with their retailers and distributors say that. It doesn't have to be with all of them. It just has to be who is authorized to sell on the internet. And so I could choose one person to do that as a brand and structure that so that I can now, even though you bought those cases of stuff from Walmart, that you could no longer sell that on Walmart legally, and the brand could come after you and take you into federal trademark court if necessary. So, and this is part of what I just talked about, is so even though, and the complaint being is that, well, wait a minute, I'm selling the exact same thing. This is real product, and I bought it, and I've got the right to sell it. Okay? And I said, you're absolutely right, unless the brand has structured to overcome that first sale doctrine. By the way, most brands, including the big ones, have not at this point. They're very quickly learning, and especially if they hire us to protect them with that. But ultimately, they have to get that. They have to get that legal standing in order to be able to enforce. So I'm going to have to look up here for this one. See what I did with my glasses here. I don't know what I did with my glasses. Well, I can kind of see it. So up top, I think that it shows what a price of $12, something like that, for this particular product is being sold. And in Amazon, anybody familiar with the term buy box at all? What that means? Okay. On Amazon, the way it works, very similar to Google. Everybody's familiar with the first page of Google, is that, when you go to Google and you look for something, most people don't go past the first page to find out, who they want to look at. Well, on Amazon, it's even worse, is Amazon will show who they have, who believe deserve to earn that buy box, and is determined by what is that person or that seller's reputation for delivery, their product availability of doing that, and their price. And they've got a sophisticated algorithm that they share with no one. And basically that if you are on the buy box as a seller, you will get about 95% of the sales that happen on that product. Everybody else is splitting the other 5%. Right? And this is the game to make money on Amazon. Now, what Amazon does on this is they go, Amazon, buy directly from Amazon through fulfilled by Amazon, which means that the item is stored at Amazon because, by the way, Amazon penalizes you as a seller if you don't agree to store at Amazon. So they have the system rigged in order to do that. But it now feels like, I'm buying, Duracell. I'm buying it directly from Amazon, and I'm getting it for $12, and suggested retail is $18. I'm getting a deal. And then they have this little place that says, there's other sellers, and then there's one for 9 something and 10 something. And oh, I can buy it from them. They didn't get the buy box because maybe they don't have the same level of reputation as the guy that did get the buy box. And that's the game that's happening on Amazon. So people go there and they're looking for deals. All right? Now, and then you got folks that selling the same thing on private sites for $5.99. And the brands are going, how in the heck can they sell it for $5.99? Because I can't even make it for $5.99. And so, is that damaged product? Was that a truck that got ripped off? A container that got ripped off? Is it counterfeit? What is it? You follow what I'm saying? But looks like a good deal, looks authentic, and a lot of these folks will use the same pictures as the brand. And so consequently, for brands, at least at the C-suite level, what's really concerning them is their reputation of their brand. They've spent a long time in getting the products right, the marketing right, the protections right for the consumer, and now there's this wild, wild west out here that is harming what's going on. We'll go to the second level, which is gray market goods. The easiest way I can explain this is, take Duracell for instance, is there are standards, say in Asia, for their batteries that are not the same standards that are required in the U.S. And so consequently, what happens is you get distributors and retailers that buy a boatload of product that is an inferior product to U.S. standards that they can buy cheaper because Duracell can sell it to them cheaper, but then turn around and then sell it into the U.S. as U.S. product. And that is what is called gray market. So it's legitimate product, but it's not what you think you're buying product. Okay? And especially when you get into electronics and a variety of different things, so for instance, what is required of electronics here in the U.S. is very different than what's required in electronics overseas. And this is done all the time, and it's a major concern, especially for the global marketplace or for brands that are selling globally. And if you look at the financial impact of just the gray market alone, what their estimates are is the lower range is out of $402 billion in sales, that 5 to 10% of those sales they believe are gray market. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but that equates out to $20 to $40 billion that is being lost because of that. So the next level becomes counterfeit and fake products. And in the counterfeit and fake products is in 2013, there are $461 billion of counterfeit products sold online. Expected to be $969 billion by 2022. And you go, oh, well, that's fine, counterfeit. I'm smart enough not to buy a counterfeit, right? And I'm here to tell you is that there's a lot of brands today, and these counterfeiters are getting so good, is that it's real difficult for the brand to distinguish the counterfeit. Okay? Where do they come from? Where do you think they come from? China and Hong Kong. 87% come from China and Hong Kong. All right? And they have elaborate systems and elaborate games that they do, and mule systems here in the U.S. That they sell to the distributors, and it's big business. It's illegal business. So, thought I'd have some fun with some funny counterfeits. Well, have you ever used what is that, crust for toothpaste? Or what is this one, Boreo? For Oreo cookies, S&M's. That's a weird kind of candy. Here's King Burger instead of Burger King. And by the way, there's actually restaurants over there, King Burger, right? These things sprout up and there. Likey instead of Nike. That one is, that was Pogo instead of Polo, right? And you have Numa instead of Yuma. And then you have Johnny Walker Red whiskey. So never had that. I've had Johnny Walker. You've had Buckstar coffee. So in case you are a coffee drinker. And then if you like a different type of coffee, then there is also Star. I won't say it. Okay? The picture's from China area. So where are the top counterfeits? So now those are obvious counterfeits, right? And again, two games being played in counterfeit today. Number one, raw counterfeit, right? Where it's, Nike, and they make it to look like Nike, and you have a hard time to do that, or Kate Spade purse, or what have you, right? And the challenge is that, there's a big difference if I buy a knockoff or counterfeit Kate Spade purse, because it's not going to harm me because I don't eat it, right? But at the same token is that if I buy counterfeit drugs or counterfeit food for my dog or counterfeit whatever, you can follow what I'm saying, and you can just go across everything that you use in your life. And, for instance, iPhone chargers. How many of you got an iPhone charger, right? How many of you bought one from Amazon? Odds are you probably bought a counterfeit. Okay? Now, the top 10 sites with the most counterfeit merchandise is AliExpress, Facebook, surprise, surprise, Tokopedia, Amazon, DHgate, iOffer, eBay, JD.com, Taobao, and Alibaba. Those are the top sites found with the most merchandise. But here's the thing: is that even China has a problem. In the southern Chinese town of Shenzhen, there are 30 Apple stores. Okay, but there's only one that's official. There's only one that's official. U.S. marketplaces have a problem. The Government Accountability Office, they actually did a study, if you will, by buying goods, just randomly choosing goods from from Amazon, from eBay, from Sears, from Newegg, and from Walmart. What it came back is that 50% of the items that they bought on those particular platforms were counterfeit. How are counterfeits beating customs? Well, they make the shoes, and they ship that to one place. And they make the boxes in another place and ship it. And then they, the labels, and they ship that. Those are all shipped differently, different ways, different containers. And then it may come to some place in Canada or the U.S. They are then assembled together. Why Canada? Because Canada doesn't care about counterfeit much at all. Very little prosecution in Canada with that. But they assemble it so that now it wasn't shipped as a pair of Nike shoes in a Nike box with Nike labels, right? So they're trying to protect being caught. The other thing that is happening today is that counterfeits are being sent through the U.S. Post Office in small packages, in volume, an absolute volume. And so when you look at there and we say, well, wait a minute, we've got the U.S. Coast Guard and Protection Agency, right? Yep. And they're pretty efficient. They've got some pretty cool high-tech stuff to have probabilities of what they look at. But frankly, they can only look at about 2 to 10% of the containers that come into the U.S. All right? But containers are not the major way a lot of this stuff is coming in. Will the trade war escalate the problem? Our contacts in China, from a legal perspective, saying it is exacerbating it, in the sense that it will probably increase counterfeits, and at the same time, China is making it more difficult to prosecute counterfeits. You can still do it, but they're making it more difficult. So, risk to consumers. So anything that you buy electronic, anything that you put on your face as makeup, anything that you take as vitamins, anything that you feed to your dogs, anything that you plug into electricity, anything like that, is you need to be very careful about what you're buying. Now, the other side of you said, well, okay, yeah, but when I go to Amazon, I only buy directly from that brand. Any of y'all, do any of y'all do that, or you just buy the cheapest one? Just curious. You buy the brand direct. Look for reviews, buy the brand, and take it that way, right? Okay. But a lot of times you can have reviews because you can fake them. Okay, good and bad, right? And at the same time you're buying from the brand. Well, and by the way, actually, before I go there, I'll come to that in a second. That here's confidence, for instance, in the drug marketplace, and you can see in the red of what is basically counterfeit and the confidence level in their drugs by the different countries, and so it impacts a lot of people differently. The good news is the pharmaceuticals are doing a pretty good job in policing that, but there is an impact to every brand out there today related to counterfeit, as well as the unauthorized and gray market. So think of those as three separate channels of ways that brands are getting harmed in their brand protection strategies. You know, CNBC, I think a couple of years ago, said Amazon's quest to be the low-cost provider of everything on the planet. The website has morphed into the world's largest flea market, and which is chaotic. Now, where I was going a minute ago is which one's fake. So with Amazon, what makes them fast in delivery? They've set up distribution centers everywhere. We've got at least one, or if not a few here, just in Tampa, right? Excuse me? They have their own trucks, their own delivery system to make it there. Now, what did I say? Is that if I'm going to sell on Amazon, whether I'm a brand or not, is that I make it more attractive to you that if you will sell fulfilled by Amazon. Why? What is Amazon's mantra? I want a good price on good product, that I want it at, I want good product to be sold. I want it at a good price, or the best price, and I want it to be delivered fast. And the way that Amazon controls delivered fast is that they have this thing called Fulfilled by Amazon, FBA. But there's one small disadvantage to FBA, is that you're the legitimate brand, and the rest of you are counterfeiters. And we all decide to sell FBA. So what they do is that your shipment is then they divide it up in all these distribution centers. But I now have a legitimate and counterfeit, legitimate and counterfeit, legitimate and counterfeit. And so when you order, which one did you get? Legitimate or counterfeit? Right? And now you start to see what the problem is for these brands, and the big brands are starting to wake up to it. And like I said, so when you now take that, and now Amazon is now trying to undercut you, take advantage of first sale doctrine, which is totally legal, totally legitimate. Take that, go sell your product and do that, and then mix it all up. So it's become a convoluted mess that most people don't realize when they just go to their cell phone and go purchase the button. So how do we go about policing this and helping brands? Well, we really have a pretty simple process called find, prioritize, identify, track, and permanently remove. Well, the first aspect of is really having to find the bad actors. And they're on social media, they're on false advertising sites, they're on multiple platforms, And what we have done is we have focused predominantly on protecting the U.S., and the reason for that is because of our investigative capabilities in the U.S., and our access to law enforcement grade databases and high-tech tools and all kind of things that we can do here in the U.S. that, because of legal laws, for instance, the GDPP law in Europe, that was just recently passed. There's all kind of problems when you start getting outside of the U.S. So we've kept it here while we will go after sellers in China, but it's product being sold in the U.S. that gives us more control. So what we have done is develop some very powerful and intelligent software that scans on a 24/7 basis exactly what's going on in these marketplaces, what products being sold, by who, what price points, when are they there, when do they come down, when do they change their store name, when do they move around, when is it on Walmart, when is it on eBay, when is it, all of that information. And by the way, if you're trying to do that by hand as a brand, and even the big brands say they just don't have the bandwidth. They have to hire vendors like us to do that. And the challenge that has been thus far in the vendor marketplace is that the folks that have been around is I would equate it to that they could see that, but it's kind of like a policeman that has a radar gun and go, whoop, you're going 55 mile an hour over the speed limit. But I don't have a car and a ticket book to run you down and hold you accountable. Okay, and that's kind of where the brand protection marketplace has been with that, and so what we've done is try to structure something a little different. So we do have the ability to look at all of that, and even in the counterfeits, we look at reviews, we look at pricing, we look at do they set up on false SKUs, do they do one-off in names, all the different games that folks play. We have the intelligence to be able to see it. Then the next thing we do is, you prioritize the worst sellers. And, what's costing you the most money? What's causing you the most heartburn as a brand? And then we help them prioritize that and go after those particular sellers. And that's, what's causing the most brand reputation damage, who's selling at the lowest price below minimum advertised pricing, who has the largest amount of product, who's causing the most financial loss. All of that gets factored into, and it's a little different, by the way, for every brand as to what their issues are. So, for instance, in Duracell, which was sold off recently by Procter & Gamble, that what Duracell decided is that they were going to change all the models for their sales teams to profit models as opposed to sales volume models. Why? It's because they were selling a lot of product to people that shouldn't get it, and all of a sudden it's getting out in the marketplace and it's killing them. And so they may move, $20 billion in sales, but if you don't make a dime on it, who cares, right? And those are the kind of things that they're having to do that way. The second aspect is identify the real seller. And this is where we've really we've been able to excel. I talked last year here on a completely different subject on our cyber side of you can run and you can't hide, of how we actually track down cyber criminals all over the world that are really trying to hide for really worse things than being an Amazon seller or that type of thing. And not that being an Amazon seller is bad, but violating either trademark or counterfeit or that type of thing. So what we've done is that we have a group of law enforcement trained investigators that are also private investigators. We have one of the largest repositories of already identified sellers in the marketplace. We set up high-speed intelligence-driven technology so that we can do these investigations in volume, which is very difficult for any investigative agency to do. I said we have access to law enforcement-grade databases. We do covert product buys from, rotated IPs, different post office boxes, a variety of things that we utilize to not tip off the sellers. And ultimately, we have the ability to pierce who these sellers are behind the Amazons and the eBays and Walmarts and all of that, down to their social security number level. We know everything about you. And And then, also the game today is that they're utilizing, FBA, which we can still get to that, in lots of ways. And the other is drop shipping companies. They're utilizing drop shipping companies as proxies. And so I buy from a company in New Jersey. I live in Texas. I buy from New Jersey who ships to California that now ships to my customer. So I can, it's kind of like, shell companies for corporations trying to hide their identities. And with that, we do a pretty good job of identifying who these people are. And with the right legal pressure, now it's no longer, sending something through the portal and going, hey, stop. And, and all these guys get a ton of this stuff, especially the professional sellers. And, they wallpaper their wall with it, whatever, ignore it. What we've done is change that where we now deliver that directly to their home, directly to them, certified, they have to sign for. And then we just start escalating that pressure on them. And in the meantime, we track their movement. So we know all the games that they try to do to obfuscate after that they've been caught. And so I might come down for 4 weeks and come up in the middle of the night and so on the weekends. And we see all that kind of stuff. And I said, once we get their identity, then through legal pressure, because we've helped the brand get that legal authority. And so the legal authority, under the gray and unauthorized is trademark infringement. There in getting that, counterfeit obviously stands as it is, which is an illegal activity just about everywhere in the world. And consequently, we start pressuring them down. If they don't come down then we have relationships to make it even harder. So we have relationships with law firms that work directly with Amazon. And so we can now figure out, who folks are that we don't know who they are. We can do seizures of websites, default judgments, under the Lanham Act and counterfeit, and we can get 3 times the damages, on that. We can work with forced settlements. We can get their seller accounts banned. So there's all kinds of, we can get their merchant accounts banned. And so there's all kind of stuff. And by the way, if you're dealing in China, we have the relationships to get to the manufacturer and shut the manufacturer down and arrest the manufacturer as well, for the bigger brands that have the money to do that. So that's kind of a world of maybe a different look at e-commerce and online selling that maybe you hadn't known before you came in here. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you. Yes, sir. So, as a consumer, what you want to do is you want to look at, first of all, what's the brand that you're buying, all right? And I would, if there's any way that brand is selling it themselves, on their own sites or those kind of things, I'd buy directly from the brand, okay? Number one. Number two is that if that's not the case, is that, as someone said, you look at reviews, but you can't trust the reviews totally. You look at, in that if I can deal directly with a merchant, that's good to know. I would look to see if that merchant is an authorized seller for the company. And if they're not an authorized seller for the company is that it may very well be that you don't have the warranties and guarantees and all the things associated with that. So you just have to be a smarter shopper. It's just not, I can get this for $5 when everybody else, when retail's at 19, right? And so those ought to be flags, because if they're selling it for $5, it's either counterfeit, it's damaged, it's something, or stolen, or what have you. Frankly, a lot of people don't care. And it also depends on what you're buying. If you're buying it to eat it, that might be one thing. If you're buying it to carry it as a handbag, that might be something different. So the things that really matter that could harm you, For instance, the like iPhone chargers and that kind of stuff. They'll come and they have UL on it, but they're fake UL numbers. They're not right. So they try to do everything they can to make you comfortable. Anybody else? Amazon's very well aware of it. Okay? Unauthorized sellers, they have in their terms of services is that it's not our problem to straighten out your distribution problems. And you know what? If I jumped over and I was the CEO of Amazon, I get it. They can't be the policeman of the world for distribution problems. But where it gets challenging is when they now go after that someone makes a complaint to them because I have set up myself right and et cetera. They don't look at it the same way. They still view it as a distribution problem, so they're not making it go away, right? Counterfeit, they're concerned, but, let's put that on a 1 to 10. 5, 6, they do enough that we don't like counterfeits. But at the same token, they're buying stuff from China in the boatloads. Okay? So it's, they're there to make money, and they're doing it, and they're demanding it, and it's really, and because this has come on so fast, as you know, these big corporations are like big ships. They don't, it takes 40 acres to turn them around. And this has come on like gangbusters, and they're pulling out their hair across every vertical you can think of. Every vertical. I mean, we're getting calls from companies that I would even never thought would have been online, and from anywhere from scientific materials to rifle scopes to food, you name it. Every vertical. This is impacting, and it's a real problem, and not too many people have figured out how to solve it. So, any other question? All right. I'm good. Thank you, guys.